Hello guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to learn about round trip time along with several other topics. So first of all, let's have a look on round trip time. So what is RTT? Basically, it's also known as round trip delay. Okay, it actually is the length of time it takes for a signal to be sent plus the length of time it takes for an acknowledgement of the signal that we sent earlier to be received. So basically, suppose you are sending a signal to the receiver. The time the signal is going to take to reach the receiver plus the acknowledgement that the receiver will send and the time that that acknowledgement is going to take to reach the sender, the combination of these times is known as round trip time. So basically the time taken by the signal to go first the time that the signal took, then the time that the acknowledgement of that signal is going to take to come to the sender. All right, so this is round trip time. This time therefore consists of propagation time between the 2 point of signal. All right, if propagation time is I'm sorry, it is written over here that if TP is propagation time, then RTT is equals to 2 into TP. All right, so basically it says that we can assume that, right, if that bit is going to take, suppose the signal that we sent took of course the time that it is going to take to reach to the other end will be the propagation time, right? So the acknowledgement is also going to take the same time, right, because propagation time is the property of the medium. Thereby we can say that 2 into propagation time is equals to round trip time. All right, so this was all about round trip time. Now moving further, let's have a detailed conversation about flow control. What flow control in detail is. Okay, so receiver has to tell the sender about its capacity of receiving data and later they agree upon a mutual speed. So basically flow control is a mechanism, as of course you know that we have discussed it quite a lot of time. So basically it is that suppose I am a sender and I have a lot more speed than you have. So I'll be sending, suppose I am sending data at the speed of 5 MBs per second. Okay, now you are only able to receive 2 MB per second. So 3 MB still remain now, right? I am sending constantly 5 MB per second. So by the time I send the entire data, you might have received only kind of, it's going to be like 40% data you have received, right? So it causes a lot of trouble. That's why we have flow control. So we both can agree over a same speed over which I am going to send you data and you're going to receive the data. All right. So speed matching, it's basically a speed matching mechanism, as I earlier told you. Reading the third point, flow control coordinates the amount of data that can be sent before receiving an acknowledgement. All right. Now what this point means is, it is well explained in the fourth point, that is flow control is a set of procedures that tells the sender how much data it can transmit before it must wait for an acknowledgement from the receiver. Okay, suppose I am a sender and you are a receiver. All right, now flow control is going to tell me that this is your limit, this much of data you are able to send. After this limit is at the time this limit is reached, you have to wait for an acknowledgement. Okay, flow control is a set of procedures that tells the sender how much data it can transmit before it must wait for an acknowledgement. So it suppose it's telling me you can only transmit let's take an 5 KB data before you have to wait for the acknowledgement of the data. Okay, basically it tells this. Receiver must inform the sender before the limits are reached and request the transmitter to send few frames or stop temporarily. So basically when the limit is reached, now it says that I have to wait for an acknowledgement and I don't have to send any further data. Basically what a receiver must inform the sender when the limit is reaches, when the limit is reached is that you now have to send me fewer frames. You have to decrease the quantity of the frames that you were sending earlier, or you have to stop temporarily. All right. Of course, in order to control or maintain the flow control that was maintained earlier. Receive the Now reading out the last point. Receiver has a limited speed at which it can process incoming data and a limited amount of memory in which to store incoming data. So basically it says that the receiver will be having a limited speed. Okay, first of all, it do have a limited speed at which it can process incoming data. Suppose I am sending you 3.5 MB per second data and you are also receiving it at a 3.5 MB per second speed. All right, that's totally fine. However, you also are going to have a processing speed, right? The data you are receiving is going to be processed inside you. If you are the receiver, then it is going to be processed, right? So that also has a speed. Okay, and a limited amount of memory in which to store the incoming data. Suppose you now, of course, now you are processing. Suppose you received a lot of data earlier. Now you are processing that data. You are busy while processing that data. So what about the data that is still coming? You are, let's assume you are storing that in your memory, that this data is still to be processed. All right, this is how it works. When you are processing the data and the data is still arriving, you will be storing that into a memory, that this data is still to be processed, and for the time being I'm putting it into a memory. So that memory also limited. Okay, now the protocols are noiseless. For noiseless channels, it is simplest and stop and wait protocol. For noisy channels, they are stop and wait ARQ, go back NARQ, selective repeat ARQ. Okay, we are going to see all of them. So first of all, let's jump to stop and wait protocol. Stop and wait protocol in is data link layer protocol for transmission of frames over noiseless channels. Okay, it provides unidirectional data transmission. Mark my words, unidirectional data transmission with flow control facilities, but without error control facilities. Without error control facilities. Okay, so the flow of data in stop and wait protocol is going to be unidirectional. Okay, it is certainly going to have the flow control facilities, though it's not going to have error control facilities. Third point is, after transmission of one frame, the sender waits for acknowledgement before transmitting another frame. Suppose I sent you the first frame. Now before I am going to send you another frame, I must wait for an acknowledgement. Only then I'll be able to send you the another frame. If you're not, this means if you're not sending me the acknowledgement for the frame that I sent you earlier, I am never going to send you another frame. All right, this is our kind of a drawback too. We are going to discuss this later. Now, primitives of stop and wait protocol. Look here. Send aside rule. Rule number one is the send one data packet at a time. First of all, you have to send just single data packet at a time. Rule number two is, for the sender, send the next packet only after receiving acknowledgement for the previous one. All right. Now, receiver side rules are receive and consume data packet. So it's of course it's quite certain that you have to receive and then consume the data packet that you received. Rule number two will be, after consuming packet, the received packet, acknowledgement need to be sent. Okay, that's how it is. And now going to the problems that we face in this protocol. The first problem is problem due to lost data. Suppose the data that I sent you is lost. Now just listen to me very carefully first before reading this sentence. Like, I sent you a data, I'm a sender, I'm sending you some data. Okay, the data somehow got lost in the way. Now as being a sender, sorry, as being a receiver, you are waiting for the data packet. and I assume that I did send you the data packet, though you are not replying me with an acknowledgement. So I am going to wait for infinite time to receive the acknowledgement, and you on the other hand are going to wait for infinite time to receive the data packet. But we both are wrong here because the data packet is actually lost. Okay, so this is a problem of the using this protocol. So what it states is, sender waits for acknowledgement for an infinite amount of time, receiver waits for data for infinite time. Okay, so that's how it is. Moving on to the next page. Problem number 2. Due to lost acknowledgement, sender waits for an infinite amount of time for acknowledgement. Okay, so due to the lost acknowledgement, the sender is gonna wait for an infinite amount of time for acknowledgement, as I told you earlier. Problem number 3 is due to delayed acknowledgement or data. Suppose the acknowledgement that you send me, as per being a receiver, you are going to send me an acknowledgement, and that acknowledgement somehow got delayed. Okay, that's also a problem. After timeout on sender side, a delayed acknowledgement. Once on my sender side, it's timeout. Now a delayed acknowledgement might be wrongly considered as acknowledgement for some other data packet. Okay, it might be considered as the acknowledgement for some other data packet. That's why it's an issue. Now coming on to stop and wait ARQ. Now ARQ here stands for automatic repeat request. Okay, after transmitting one frame, the sender waits for an acknowledgement before transmitting the next frame. That is also same in the previous one, right? So what's the difference here is, if the acknowledgement doesn't arrive after a certain period of time, the sender times out and retransmits the original frame. So this is the change here. That suppose you are not you did send the data, however you are not receiving an acknowledgement, right? So what are you going to do is, you are assuming that the data packet might have lost in the way, so you will be retransmitting that after a certain period of time. Okay, and the third point says that stop and wait ARQ is equals to stop and wait plus timeout timer plus sequence number. Okay, so it's basically stop and wait protocol, though it also have timeout timer and sequence number. The drawbacks are one frame at a time sent only. So look, it is a drawback. How it is? It has been stated in the second point. Poor utilization of bandwidth. Though you are able to send a lot of data back, a lot of frames, still you are sending only one frame. So it is of course a poor utilization of the bandwidth. Hence it is a poor performance. Right? This was all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the session, and please consider to like the video and subscribe the channel. Thank you, guys.